Hello and welcome to this week's review on Dragon Ball Daima. This week I'm reviewing the episode Glorio. We kick off this review, as we always do with these reviews, by talking about the positives, all the things I enjoyed about this episode, and we kick off with the headline positives. I enjoyed the intro and outro sequence. I feel that the episode was paced well, and I think the episode as a whole had a good sense of humour. So we'll start off with the beginning by talking about the beginning and the ending. I really do like the intro and outro sequence for this series. It might well change at some point, but for what we got this week was really enjoyable, and this is the first time that we're getting both the intro and the outro. There was no intro-outro last week, and the closest thing that we got to hearing this series' theme was during the closing credits of last week's episode. I'd have to say that I really do like the opening music. Here's this great, bouncy, spirit adventure to it that's really enjoyable and does feel as though he's definitely keeping with the tone and the feel of this particular series. There is a part of me that would like a little bit more of a musical nod to the classic intros, or at least a couple more visual cues here and there with the actual animation sequence itself, but the animation sequence itself is still really fantastic and has this great visual flair to it that goes all the way through it, and is certainly one of the more imaginative and high-spirited intros that we've had in a very long time. Once again, keeping very much with this adventurous, spirited, enjoyable tone this particular series has. It feels light, it feels refreshing, it feels like the perfect tonic for this time of year that we find ourselves in. It is great. I think that it really does give this sense of that this is the Dragon Ball you know and love, yet at the same time has its own identity and its own feel of it, and doesn't get too navel-gazing or too wrapped up in its own nostalgia or its own legacy, as, let's be honest, this is to celebrate its 40th anniversary, and there's a lot of series that do get very navel-gazing when it ends up coming to their major milestones in their legacy. I'm still, of course, reminded of the bit towards the end of last week's episode where the Jacka-Jen music started playing, where all our cast members were doubled over in pain, and that was just juxtaposed by this really chirpy music playing in the background, like Jacka-Jen, Jacka-Jen, fierce fun and laughter and great things. Oh God, my bones! And music and laughter too. Oh, I'm having a stroke. This week that isn't the case, but that's still playing in the back of my mind whenever I hear this music. But still, you know, he has a good feel to it, and the outro, I will say, does, certainly the animation of the outro does feel like it's closer to the spirits of classic Dragon Ball, the way that the composition of certain shots and certain images do feel like it is this composite of all the versions of Dragon Ball that have gone before it. There is elements of the original Dragon Ball, elements of Z, Super, GT in some areas, and this ends up making it feel more like a celebration of the series as a whole, even the stuff that Akira Toriyama didn't have a direct hand in. And I really do like that. It does end up feeling more like a genuinely authentic, let's celebrate this thing that we all love, rather than playing favourites and going, this stuff doesn't matter, this stuff sucks. So whatever you end up thinking about it, it's still this celebration of, this is this thing we all like, here it all is, and let's all enjoy it for what it is. The animation is still solid, and if I have any criticism, it's not necessarily animation itself, it's just that the only reason, if I was to compare these two episodes, I would say that the previous episode does feel like the animation is stronger, but that's mostly due to the fact that last week had some more impressive visual images and more spectacular moments to get blown away by. Last week was this rich tour de force and just some really brilliant scenes and sequences and moments, just taking us into this bold new world that we'd never seen before, one which had a distinct look and feel to it, unlike anything we've ever seen in this series before, to create this really unearthly, strange locale. And this week we're back in the Dragon world with all the characters that we know and love, and it is a lot more normal, it's a lot more conventional, it's a lot more mundane by what we've seen of it, but what we see of it, the animation is still good, it is still great. Yes, I would like some more visually spectacular stuff happening, and we do get little teasers of stuff that might come later, certainly as far as the quality of the action sequence is concerned. We have that little moment where Goku is using the power pole for the first time in a long time, and I like that. Again, it has this feeling of being a tease for later on, which is something that I can appreciate. And let's be honest, for an episode that's ultimately a meat and potatoes episode of just connecting tissue from one thing to the other, with a lot of just normal, mundane, animated stuff. I think that it does it all very well. Now, Super did this stuff well to its credit as well, but I think that the Super art style didn't quite work with the wackier side stories that came up in there. Whereas with this one, yeah, I can see somewhat more wacky and silly happening here, yet there's still moments where there is this sense of suspicion and dread and skepticism here and there, particularly that little moment where the Supreme Kai is talking to Goku about, maybe we shouldn't trust this Glorio guy, what's his deal, there's something about him that we don't like, and I do like the shift to a more serious look that we end up getting from both the characters, which again ends up showing just the range of expressiveness that this particular art style has for these particular incarnations of these characters. I will say is I think that the pacing of this episode is great, and I know that this is a thing that maybe I'll talk a little bit too much on, but for me, pacing is almost like the magic ingredient that helps an episode or a series or a movie come together, and I think that this episode gets it near perfectly. There is a part of me that wishes the episode could have gone on for longer, and I wish a little bit more ended up happening, but with that said, nothing in the episode feels rushed or drawn out. It never feels as though we're losing time from one thing being too long or one thing being too short. Some people might debate that with Glorio, but we'll touch upon that later, but I still feel as though it uses its time effectively. Again, there's certain things that we can debate on, which we certainly will do when we get into the negatives, but there's never this moment in the episode where I got to the end of it and thinking, oh, that's it, or, oh, wait, what about this thing, what about that thing? And I will admit that I was worried going into this episode that we'd get a whole lot of, oh no, I'm a baby, oh no, I'm a child, stuff over and over and over again, and we'd end up having almost every single character going, oh no, I've been turned into a child, oh no, I too have been turned into a child. And we don't end up getting that. We just get a few little key shots and moments and appearances here and there, a few couple jokes thrown in here and there. And it works. It is effective for what it is without getting too gratuitous or going too just overstaying its welcome. And there is this weird fact to the matter that everyone just seems to accept what has happened for the most part, especially Bulma. Like, maybe this is the thing that ended up making her use the Dragon Balls like every other week when she, as is hinted in the Dragon Ball Superheroes things, or was it Broly, whichever one of it. But still, I think that it works. I think that stuff works well, and hey, maybe the reason why they're not so fussed about it is because they know that Goku's going to fix it. Now, granted, they don't know about Dende being kidnapped and Mr. Popo just giving him away freely. Like, oh, well, whatever, yeah, you can take him, whatever. Like, I thought Mr. Popo was supposed to be the Kame's attendant, whoever that may be, the Guardian of Earth's attendant, their bodyguard, and he just kind of gives up. Like, I know that there's all the gags and such from Dragon Ball Abridged, but come on, I expected a little bit more of something to happen. Even he just got flicked away by one of the bad guys or tripped up or something. But he just kind of goes, all right, he's gone. Okay, well, I better wait for Goku to get here. And to be fair, this whole thing about Dende getting kidnapped, I think is a far stronger hook than a lot of people were expecting the hook for them going to Demon Realm being. Because for the various commentary, and I don't mean this as a slight to any of the commentators and reviewers on YouTube, but the accepted logic would be, oh, our heroes are going to the Demon Realm so that they can use their Dragon Balls. That was pretty much the accepted logic that we're going to be having here. But no, Dende has been kidnapped, or babynapped, or what have you, and now they're going off to rescue him. That's the basic hook for this, and that's fine, that works. It still feels as though it's a case of our villains kind of bungling away their way through this, but sure, whatever, we'll work with it. I still think this episode needs a little bit more here and there, maybe a few scenes here and there extra, and I'm not sure if that's because I wanted more, because I was enjoying it so much, or a feeling that this episode is a little too short for me and it needed more. However, before we end up getting to the negatives, I will say is I did enjoy the little gag moments and little humorous asides that we had in the episode itself. Roshi getting younger again and deciding to use that as opportunity to get back in the game, despite the fact he's probably only about 9 years old. It's a silly little moment. Goku and Ko not being able to use their powers and floating about, kind of like Goku did in that episode of Super. Fun, good, it has a good spirit to it. Krillin still being short and getting ragged on for being short. Okay, good, fun. I kind of expected a little bit more of a joke to be made about that, but sure, we'll roll with it for what it is. And Kibito getting jobbed about by Bulma, which is, yeah, it's a fun little bit. Again, something I kind of wish they laid a little bit more of, especially with the Kibito getting jobbed about bit, but works for what it is. Even though all the way through this episode, I was just thinking and just wanting to shout to the screen, just take the ship to Capsule Corp. You've got a guy here that can teleport things all over the shop. Don't do this shit up here. Do it down there with the super high-tech laboratory. Not in someone's front garden, for God's sake, on the other side of the planet. They could have done that. That would have been really cool. That would have been really good, far more effective. But hey ho, what do I know? And then at the end of the episode, they pretty much concede, oh yeah, maybe we should have done that in the first place. Oh boy, looks like Dragon Ball Daima's already gone off the deep end. Oh, it's all down here from there. Or from here, or whatever. Anyway, we'll move on and get into the negatives. So, for an episode called Glorio, he hardly features in this episode one bit. Like, I will admit, I do appreciate the fact that when he was introduced, we didn't get into some bullshit fight with him and Goku not trusting each other and getting some elongated, needless fight thing. And it's one of those fights where you know that if everyone just stopped for a minute and just said, oh, hey, we're going after the same guy, or we're after this guy, or I'm not with those guys, nothing would have happened, but hey-ho, we avoided it, and I'm happy for that. But there's still a part of me that kind of thinks that maybe having that in would have been a little more substantive than him just saying, hi, I'm Glorio, I want to stop the bad guys, okay, let's go stop the bad guys. Like, that would have been at least a little bit more of something, and with an episode called Glorio, you would expect a little bit more of a hint and a suggestion of who he is, rather than it just being named after him because he happens to be in the episode, even though he happened to be in the previous one, and he doesn't really feature in this episode at all. Like, sure, whatever, I wish there was something more done with him, but it's only 1-2 episodes into it. But again, for an episode like Glorio, you'd expect him to feature in it a little bit more, and at this moment he's just your enigmatic, aloof anime character, which is okay for some people, but again, would have liked a little bit more, but of course we will get more of that because we're only about 50 minutes into this entire series. Speaking of the runtime and the minutes and such, I will admit that I think that the 30-minute runtime works better. This week it's only about 20-25 minutes. Last week's was about 30-35 minutes. That extra 10 minutes might not seem like a lot, but this is an episode where a lot of our cast just sit around and do nothing. They're just a whole lot of just sitting around, waiting, or not getting much done. Now, I can be appreciative of the fact that, yeah, you can't do another episode which is almost entirely exposition, but I still think you could have done a lot more with that time, had a little more fun with it. You could have had a moment where Glorio and Goku are fighting or failing at training. You could have a moment where Vegeta and Goku, or Piccolo and Goku are training, or see how all the other characters are reacting to all of the fact that they've been turned into children, or just something else would, I think, help to build this episode out more and make it feel a little bit more substantial than it was. Again, I still think the episode itself is good, and with that said, let us move into the overview and say that yes, this is a good second episode, even if it does suffer from difficult second episode syndrome. Like, it's always going to struggle in comparison to the first episode, because the first episode just had so much riding on it, and it got so much right. That first episode was a love letter to everything that made Dragon Ball great, and I think is one of my favourite things that's been made for Dragon Ball in decades, and I really do love it. This week, it's just business as usual, and I don't mean that in a bad way. This is an episode which is just, this is how we work, this is how we operate, but I do wish as though there was a little bit more going on here, because this is an episode which, again, is mostly most of our cast just sat around a table waiting for Bulma to build a thing, only for another character to come along and say, I've got another thing, come with me, let's go beat up the bad guys. It's not a bad thing. I think that there is a certain humour there, and I think there may be a little bit a subversive gag in the fact that you'd think that Glorio would be introduced into this thing, and the first thing that they do is have a big, stupid, pointless fight, and then, oh, I guess I'll trust you guys. Come on, let's go punch King Goma on the nose. Yeah! And that's not what ends up happening. He just comes along, hey, do you want to go kick? you want to kick the shit out of King Goma? Sure, let's go. and it just ends there and then. And I will say is that there was a part of me that was worried, because in the run-up to this, and especially during like the intro stuff, there was a part of me that was worried that we'd end up having this massively overfilled main cast, because we'd have Goku and Supreme Kai and Glorio and the other demon person that we end up meeting, and Bulma and Vegeta and Piccolo and whomever else we end up meeting from episode 2 onwards, and we're not going to have that. Instead, for the meantime, it's just going to mostly focus seemingly on the Supreme Kai, Goku and Glorio. Yes, new characters have been introduced into it. Yes, those other main character members will be brought back into it at a later point, but at least we're going to have time to really explore this world maybe as we go forward with all that said and done. But still, I think that this is a solid second episode. I would have liked a little bit more from it. I think there's a certain something missing from it, but I can't say what that is. But with all that said and done, let's get into Comment Corner! It's time for Comment Corner, for the first time for a Dragon Ball thing. Oh wow! And we kick off with Big X1, who says, "Wow, I didn't think you'd review this one. Just saw it. I wish there was more action. Happy to see it has taken place before Super and not after, though. Thank you for your comment. I am aware that this was a fear that many fans of Dragon Ball had going into this. Like, there has been this almost... I don't even know the best way to respond it, but certainly this apprehension that Dragon Ball Daima was in some way going to retcon and invalidate Super, and particularly the stuff that came after the Super TV series, it would end up invalidating the stuff with Granola and Morio and all that. And by the looks of things, that certainly isn't the case, and I know some people have been trying to make major hay out the fact that, oh, they retconned the way in which Kibito and Supreme Kai defuse, and that means that Dragon Ball Super's not canon anymore. Oh, drama, drama, drama. I don't think that's the case. I really don't. It wouldn't surprise me if by the end of this series we just kind of neatly form back into the stuff that would end up leading into Super anyway. And if not, then it doesn't really matter, because what you really need to have it line up that neatly. I mean, whatever. That's a discussion for all of the time. Well, I'll say thank you for listening, thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought about this one down in the comment section down below, and I'll get back to you shortly. You'll be read out in a future video. Thank you for your listening, thank you for all the watching, and see you next time. Goodbye!
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!